happening across the board. And so you couldn't have a look at this in isolation. What I did hold, strongly was the view that if we not proactive in the way we view the security, consideration around the installations, especially those of, civilian law enforcement,
Right.
side by side with, continued appraisal in tune with the prevailing threats, then we may be found, flat-footed, especially when in the face of the dynamics that we see in the threat landscape today.
And talking about being caught flat-footed, that's probably what happened yesterday. But also from where you sit, is it? Could you have expected more after what happened in Kapenguria? Would it have been the right decision to have police installations, like a police station, really guarded more than what we've been seeing previously?
Absolutely, yes. I mean, if you ever look at all those points with considerations that should be an integral part of ongoing appraisal, and first of all, with the way we do man security installations, so talk police post police stations, the highest of which you would think about in terms of Mombasa Central Police Station, lacking requisite access control measures to prevent threats like this from happening and or prevent their effects from being as large scale as it was, then we may be failing ourselves. So the failure of understanding failure should be priority, in the sense that lessons can be learned from what's been happening in the past.
Right.
We're thinking, Kapenguria, we're thinking all the way back to Lamu and the other police stations that have been attacked before. If we could draw strength from those lessons, then we'd be a lot better today and maybe in future. But it's saddening that things like that could happen without notice.
All right. Let's talk about specifically what happened in Mombasa. And at the end of the day, the terror suspects were killed.
Yes.
What can you say about the response of the police then, how they were able to kill the terror suspects before really they could do much?
I may not be as impressed about the response as I would be about what could be done to prevent this from happening.
Okay.
Or what could have been done to have seen or figured out that a threat like this could actually be feasible. The fact that a response was actually mounted in the face of people or the agents of terror that basically had a petrol bomb or maybe a knife that they used against a police officer is more worrying to me than what actually happened afterwards. And this is because if you ever look critically at the screening measures, what we call the evaluation of threats and validation of the same, then that must have been missed, and to a big extent. And I'll throw this not just to Central, but around, to have a look at what the posturing in terms of police stations are, where you'd visit and you don't have a feeling that this is a high security installation, where much as the civilian law enforcement, so they'd welcome everybody to Mishi Kwawote, but we're thinking you should have the safety in their protection, and it's not just in people looking like they're doing it, but actually doing what should be giving you that confidence that not a bad guy would basically slip through the access controls, get to an OB place, possibly throw an argument that they lost a phone, and you know the story that was reported. The way that information was actually processed must have led to getting the other ladies or the women that accompanied the first one that approached the OB desk to do their thing without anybody watching them. So that's more worrying to me in terms of lack of situational awareness on the part of the police guys that were there. And secondly, in the way that information was actually managed in a way that would have even to that extent neutralized that threat before it escalated.
Okay, but I'd also want to hear your thoughts about what would really give such people like the women really guts to go into a police station. Just the fact that it's a police station, there's some sort of fear. But what would give this kind of people that confidence to actually go in there with knives and a petrol bomb, so confident that they can actually do whatever they wanted to do?
Knowledge dispels fear. And for such level of confidence, you got to actually be thinking there's absolute happiness in, we know what's gonna happen. We got the information as to how things are run, you know, and how business is run here. So that gives you, first of all, some confidence. It's common knowledge. If you have confidence, then it begets some level of knowledge and awareness, and obviously happiness in success. So guaranteed success. If we'd had attitudes and or feelings that are reinforced by some successes in the past, then someone might be able to try the same the following day and or in future. If there's a concerted effort to prevent the same from happening, which means we're talking real deterrence factors, where you're thinking, I wouldn't want to attempt going through that gate because someone with a very big gun is gonna, you know, shoot me to, you know, that would discourage you.
Okay.
But if those maybe and this is the way it goes, there's a level of intelligence that invested by anybody that wants to do something, even if it just means you're walking up the street or down some street and want to pick a phone off someone. You know, there's not so much that I would want to think about in terms of a backlash, right? So that level of confidence, and these are not people that are maybe as normal as me and you. They have a level of indoctrination, they have a level of radicalization, and all these other things coming together to confluence to make a human being who's ready to die in the first place.
All right, let's talk about prevention, because it's something that you've really talked about. Most of our police stations have really remained the same since they were actually built. You know, nothing really has been done. You know, this one, you know, there's really no protection or, you know, security, whatever perimeter wall around such you know, institutions or installations like the police stations. But moving forward, I mean, what is that thing that needs to be done, you know, so that these places, which are actually supposed to be, you know, as safe as possible, are actually it?
Absolutely right. I mean, if we all know, even truth is mortal. What was absolutely true yesterday is a myth today.
Right.
Conventional wisdom passes into a fad tomorrow. And this could be a question of us missing out on the real picture of the reality as it is today. And so being wedded to the past and to what worked yesterday or what worked before, you know, the pre-colonial duration, where the threats were markedly different from what they are today. You know, it keeps us off step with what's happening today. So as you rightly said, security considerations that surround the installations, like I say, are probably providing yesterday's answers to today's problems. Could it be a case of false self-image, where we misinterpret our own competencies and capabilities in light of what's happening today? Could it be that we rock up and probably occupy, so in terms of occupancy, a building that was probably rented off someone because we lack in the way we thought to have and or modify the existing ones, or have ones that are actually matching the threats as they are today. And this is driven by other factors other than security considerations, where, you know, as I said, the operational requirement study should be informed by a well, you know, diagnostically done threat assessment first of all, and then build measures. You know, form follows function. You don't want to think about, you know, walking through, you know, a station that has a road, a main access control that opens up to it just barely a meter from the road, where, you know, if even an opportunistic thug would lob a grenade in and things like that. Those are considerations that are actually real. And if we also battling with, you know, bad pictures of reality reinforced by delusional attitudes among the leadership and possibly poor leadership skills to change that wrong picture of the reality, we end up operating a very bad triangle, you know, and continue to reel in very bad inertia. All
right, let's talk about, you know, funding, because I mean, security is one of the, you know, biggest, you know, funded, you know, departments in the country. Where does this money go to? Because you still have police stations that still do not have, you know, basic equipment. You know, even, you know, we still have, you know, records which are being made, you know, on papers, and, you know, instead of, you know, having computerized systems. And that's even just the basic. I mean, even looking at some of the police stations, they are in deplorable conditions. So as much as fine, we are investing in, you know, equipment, you know, isn't there money, you know, that can go into improving some of these installations?
I think that is debatable, and I'd wish to have a modern Gucci security machinery. But My optimism is that what we have currently could actually be made into what is matching to the threats that we are actually dealing with today.
Okay.
For someone to rock up with a knife, that for sure didn't require state-of-the-art
Right.
computers. But if we deal with threats as they are side by side with what is presented in terms of how they combated, I'd wish to say the optimism is there in terms of the need to invest. But I don't really think this is being picked up adequately, especially in light of what we know, corruption. This might not actually be feeding the right picture that they are all intended to serve. If you have a fence that is built halfway and part of that fence is impounded material, wares, motorbikes, cars and stuff like that, it doesn't need rocket scientists to know that that is actually a compromise, because I mean, if they provide footholds, there's no need to veil the fence that is not going to be serving the purpose.
Okay.
For me, that is really cosmetic and possibly doesn't serve the purpose. Some of those things, as I say, could actually be tweaked to serve in their current presentation what should actually be done.
All right.
But I think there's a substantial lack of centeredness
All right.
in the way the people factor itself
Okay, you mentioned
should be
something.
geared to work towards achieving those goals.
You mentioned something to do with, a cosmetic approach, to security. Last week, President Uhuru Kenyatta launched a counterterrorism strategy.
Yes.
I mean, this is not the first time that you're hearing of something like that being launched.
Yeah.
Do this, strategies really make sense, on the ground, or is it just a cosmetic way to look at, solving this issue?
I'd like to say some of the strategies that I've heard of and that I'm aware of are really ambitious, actually really well intended. But we all know here that intentions without action is, it's possibly worse than useless. If they do not get operationalized with the correct commitment on the part of those that are meant to basically take the, cut off the sails and move ashore, then they don't just go anywhere. If we have policies like, let's say, the Nyumba Kumi initiative,
Right.
and me and you haven't seen a Nyumba Kumi guy maybe rock
Exactly.
up to make sure things are... So the how in terms of the strategy, if we look at the strategy in the grand scheme of things, the who, what, how. The how to me is the most important. The how it's going to be done. Who does it could be found. What's being done could be actually figured out. But the how it's done is really, really important. So we have a lot of strategies that are really well intended, possibly the best intentioned of those strategies, but the operationalization, turns them on their head. So you meet guys who possibly don't understand. So we don't have in the first place a prepared workforce. What would really state-of-the-art laptops and all, very, very ambitious stuff do?
Right.
You'd be automating confusion.
Right.
So preparing the workforce, making sure that the people that get in and those that are actually existing are wedded to their jobs.
Okay.
So you're looking at, a lot of things all in one.
Okay. All right, let's also talk about, finally, as we wind up, there has been this push and pull between, county governments and the national governments. County governments say that they want to, be handling security in their counties. Do you think if this was to happen, it would really help the situation? Because, I mean, the county leaders would know what essentially happens or where the gaps are in their counties.
There are several tactical answers to this, and I'd love as much as possible to devolve everything all the way to where an individual meets a service. So where I'm safe because I know someone is actually intent on making me absolutely safe. So I'd love that to happen.
Right.
But without again having all the structures, procedures, policies, everything handed over in a clear, and concise manner, then again we'd just be looking at a gang confusion at the bottom end where service is actually supposed to be delivered. And we're talking security, so this is really high reliability. If you're talking sales of, grocery or something like that, you'd go back home and eat your stuff. But if someone messes with the security matter, possibly someone is dying or things like this, like what you've seen in the past are happening. So if we're not really keen to have solid structures, have the information seep all the way to where people need to manage them and in a very, very articulate manner, then we'd possibly looking. So for me, first of all, is to actually just prepare that clear lines of handover and all sorts of things. Prepare the county or the devolved units. If those incentives have to go down to the divisional levels, then have the right incentives go down to those divisional levels of autonomy, so they actually work. But you know, if there's a tussle that's based on politicking and all sorts of things, then if it's you know, touching on security, for me, it wouldn't actually burn down to real effects on the ground.
All right, so it's a matter of, you know, leaving the politics out of it and creating the structures that are needed.
Absolutely, yes.
All right, thank you so much, Byron Adera. He is a security analyst talking to us about that incident that took place yesterday in Mombasa. All right, we now want to take a short break, but of course we will be back in a few minutes. But remember, we want to interact with you on our Twitter poll. We are asking you today, are you satisfied with the government's counter-terrorism strategy? Are you satisfied with the government's anti-terror strategy? That is our Twitter poll. We'd like to hear what you have to say about it. Tweet me at Betty M. Kialo, or you can also use the hashtag News Center, and shortly I will be taking a look at your responses. All right, so we take that break. We will be back in a few minutes. Don't go away and keep us engaged on that Twitter poll. We'd like to hear your thoughts on it. We still have so much